Noelle, Ali, and Hannah Bruce. They will be taking us through the project MyNormal and their journey to building accessible instruments. Take it away.
All good?
Cool. Yes. Hi, everyone. I am Noelle. I work for ArcT Center, which is an arts and creativity center in Oxford, as well as working with ScienceOxford, which is a charity that supports science and tech in underserved communities. And this is Hannah. Yeah.
Hello. So I'm Hannah Bruce, and I also work at the ArcT Center, and I project manage a project called MyNormal Music Project, which is all about inclusion, and we like to make sure that music is available for everyone, and we specifically work with young people, and we actively include LGBTQ+ and disabled young people to our project. So, cool. So this project started up because I went to a conference run by Drake Music, who are a leading national charity around music and inclusion of disabled people in music. And they do amazing work. You should look them up. And I went to, that's me there. I was doing some drumming. It was a really fun conference, I must say. we made a song, which was really good. I went to something called a DM Lab workshop, which was really interesting. They had tech people and they had disabled musicians who basically had been given a small grant to create musical instruments based on what the musician wanted, basically. So there was one person there who spoke about either, as a disabled musician, they had the space in which to play music, but no instruments which they felt were accessible to themselves, or they had the instruments that were accessible but no space. And as I run MyNormal Music Project, I realized that we had this space, but we didn't necessarily have all the instruments. And at the end of that day, I made like a pledge, one pledge of something that you'd do, and mine was like, I'm gonna talk to Noelle and see if there's anything that we could do about that. And that is where this project and the Accessible Instrument project came from, because we wanted to see what we could do. Yeah. So when we kind of started out chatting about this, me and Noelle realized that there were already people who had kind of started looking into kind of new ways of making music. For example, Imogen Heap's Memu gloves. I don't know if any of you have heard of them. They're really, really interesting. She's been developing them for years. But they're like it's all about just using your hands and your movement of your hands to kind of change music and perform it in a live way. And that's Chris Halpin, who uses them now. He identifies as a disabled musician. He used to play guitar, but he slowly was less able to play guitar, and he felt like he was never going to be able to make music in the same way. And one of the things that he's been working with Drake Music to kind of work on his music using the Memu gloves. Me and Noelle thought this was such an interesting concept that we thought, yeah, we felt quite inspired by, and we wanted to see what we could do.
So we'll post the entire video on the Slack channel, but we could show you a short clip of what playing these gloves would looks like. I think if I start here. If it wants to load, it's up to you.
Yeah, it's getting there.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, but all right. So we'll post it on the Slack, and you will see it there. Because, but essentially, and we'll demo what a similar project that came up later. So.
Ooh, is it going?
Oh.
Ooh. Just. Let's see if we can get it. If we can, I think it'll be really interesting. It's something that we at the project with the young people, we actually showed them. This video.
So the sound's not working, but that's all right. It's good. It's okay. Sorry. Well, as you can see, it looks very fun. And again, we'll post on the Slack. So, moving on, we started off considering some of the barriers for music and tech to get into, for people to be able to access them. There's obviously, not all of these apply to everybody, and there are, for some people, even more than these, but the considerations about space, new people, learning something new, which is hard for everyone, no matter who you are, and learning new material. One of the most common things I talk about when I talk about learning material, how it's very exciting for you to dive in, and it's not really fair to dunk somebody else in to learning something new. And as much as you can encourage someone to do that, it's, you just can't force new material on other people. Yeah?
No, I think, yeah. I mean,
so that helped us formulate our project goals, which was to first offer music and technology opportunities to those of our community underserved in these industries, and then to empower the group to interact with music and tech in ways they've never done before. And because we are overly ambitious, we also wanted to teach them how to do all of the things we were making, rather than just make products for them, is to show them how to program them themselves. So we started off with the Makey Makey. Has anyone seen the banana piano before? I'm sure. It's like everyone who's seen it falls immediately in love with it.
especially young people.
Especially young people. And our group was delighted to be a part of it. So this is some members of our group playing Happy Birthday, asking if they can start a band now because they want to start a banana piano band, which is a good idea, and keep an eye out because that'll totally happen.
Yeah, and it was quickly after like that session seeing the banana piano, because I'm quite new to the kind of tech side, that was like the way, there was like no barrier to making music, because it was like these bananas, it wasn't what you think of a traditional instrument, you know? And so there was like no kind of fear with them, which I thought was really amazing.
Yeah. And it was, to look at music and instruments and programming in a new light was part of the goal. So since it was our ambitious goal not only to create something for each participant, but to teach them how to make it themselves, we had to sort of make an action plan, which involved teaching programming to new programmers. And one of the tools we used for that was the microbit. So has anyone seen the microbit before in this room? Probably a lot of you. It's really hard to avoid it at this conference. But if you haven't heard of it before, you definitely should go to one of their talks. They do an amazing job. It's a small little device that has pins, buttons, accelerometers, light sensors, and more. And so we started off trying to recreate something of the Mimu glove. So I have a little demo here, which I can show you. Just plug it in. So I don't know if you can see. This is a hand, so as you move it, it's going to change the pitch and the tone. If you want to see this more, you can come to the hardware showcase at 2:30, where you can try it yourself. So it just, as you move it, it's detecting the tilt and the rotation, so it's playing a little sound. I know you can barely hear it, but but it changes as you move. So in teaching the groups to program this, we had to start with block editors and move into more advanced programming in MicroPython. And you just start with a really simple line of code or two. This is how to just play a single note when a button is pressed. And it's really helpful to build it in the blocks and then to look back and build it again in MicroPython and see the similarities, which makes it seem a lot less overwhelming. So this was one project that was created, and this was part of this beautiful project. The design initially was so that the microbits would be charged with solar panels, because we're from Oxford, and if you nod, it changes music. So this also has a hat component to it, which is a microbit attached to a hat. Do you want to? So let's see. If you press a button, again, I think we'll have to demonstrate this at the tech show off. But essentially, you press a button and it'll play a guitar, and when you jump, it plays music. So if you want to see this in action, we will come to the hardware showcase at 2:30. But this was just started off with a few simple lines of programming, and grew from there. Additionally, one of the projects we worked on was integrating with Ableton, which is music software that is used by professional musicians. So we have some inputs here.
So inside here is a makey. And yeah, we hooked them up to these. Originally they were buttons, but they were quite difficult to press. And actually these are incredibly satisfying. Should definitely come along to the hardware thing because they're very satisfying to like press. And we showcased what we created.
Play a few more.
Oh. So it's hooked up to Ableton. Ableton can basically play loads of different sounds of whatever they are. So at the moment it's like hooked up to be a drum kit. Not a drummer, but
It's just cool.
But so there's loads of different kind of sounds on here. So it's basically, if you've seen a MIDI controller that connects up to like a laptop to like connect to Logic or any other digital audio workspace like Ableton, this is essentially controlling the notes that get played. And it's kind of different from a piano. When we showcased them at a festival that ArcT put on called RAW, which is an inclusive youth arts festival. And I was kind of asking the young people that came along and tried them out, like, what they liked about it. And like, they just love the feeling of pressing this a lot more than, they were much more gravitated to this than to like playing a like MIDI piano, which I thought was quite interesting. And that was one of the things that in the group that we did at the start. We were just like, this is the general idea of making accessible instruments, and that can be whatever you want that to be, whatever that means to you, whatever that means to the world, what you want to kind of give a go. And that's how like the amazing idea of like the hat that when you jump it starts to play music, or when you tilt, which I never would have thought of. And that's another great thing about working with young people. Great idea.
Yeah. So speaking of pianos, another one of the designs that came out of this workshop was a 5-finger piano. And now this is not a 5-note piano, it's a 5-finger piano. And so using the pins on the microbit, each pin will interact with a different note. And our young people realized that if you press multiple pins, you could form a new note out of the microbit detecting those multiple pins, which means that 5 fingers can basically, in different combinations, play 120 notes, which is more than the average piano. So you can access more than normal piano notes. And this idea stemmed from one of our young people who identified that they were struggling to sit still to learn to play the piano, and that they're constantly moving and fidgeting, and that they wanted something that they could play while they were pacing. And so it quickly went, you could start building on it and get 120 notes. So we have, again, another video we can post in the Slack is a demonstration from the team that was working on this video, and show you how that worked, because that is one of my favorite projects. And I think that one was one of my favorites because when I realized that I would really struggle to remember which combinations of notes or which combinations of pins refers to each note. So what is more accessible to them is less accessible to me, and that was a really new thing for me to realize and for me to promote. So yeah, and we wanted to review the project and talk about how accessibility means something different for everyone, and that combining music and tech meant that we reached new groups. So people who had no interest in playing music came along for the tech, and people who had no interest in tech came along for the music. And we were able to get everyone involved and equally excited about the project.
Yep.
I think there was one of the parents said that their child normally is homeschooled, and that getting them to projects like this is really difficult, but that they really light up and really enjoyed it, and that they would want to do more of it. And another thing that was really helpful for us was to go to places, like we already have a group of young people in these communities that we talk to, and we go to a place where they feel safe and that they feel welcome, and that we also structured this project around accessibility and telling people that this is a safe space and that we want you to come here regardless of your of your identity or your experiences in music and tech in the past. It's good. Yeah.
Definitely, and I think the accessibility, meaning like something different for everyone, is really important. Like, we believe in the social model of disability, which is the fact that the world disables you. And, you know, you can think about how many people have been like disabled by the grading system in music, or like the way it's taught at school, you know, not suiting everyone. So I think, you know, it's interesting to think about music in a different way, and playing it in different ways that are like less traditional, but still 100% like valid, and that really needs to be promoted more.
Yeah. So our goals for the future are to have more opportunities to perform. So as we talked about, we structured this as 4 workshops. Three workshops that we ran over the course of a month, and then we had a performance opportunity at World Disability Arts Festival, and to basically to have more opportunities to perform, to record albums with these instruments. And I know that MyNormal has at least 1 album out, maybe 2 now?
2,
yeah, 2 albums out that they're working on, and that we want to collaborate with similar groups. So we have been we want to work with the prototype facility at MyNormal, into making these a bit more robust and a bit less hot glue and felt. And we've also been in contact with Chris Haplin as well, who's interested in helping support the project.
Yeah, we really want to get him to come and run a workshop and show us more about the Meme Gloves, which would be really exciting for the group to see.
And we're also hoping that any of you in the community who finds any interest in this project, or would, you know, basically let us know and give us suggestions and ideas. So yeah, basically, thank you very much for letting us speak today. I hope that you all enjoy the rest of your PyCon. And if you want to see these working, you can come to the hardware showcase at 2:30, where we'll have those set up and ready to play around with. So, thanks.
Cheers.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions? I've got one. Are you looking for people to contribute to your project?
Yes.
There you go. They're looking for contributors.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. They will be at the hardware showcase in room A at 2:30 this afternoon. Thank you once again for your talk.
Thank you, everyone. Cheers.